What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Technical Foul Podcast. As always, you're here with the three of us. I'm Jack Anderson, one of your co-hosts. To my right, we have JP. JP, how's it going?
Playoff buddy, man. Shout out Buddy Hield. Warriors just won. So we're feeling really good as a Warriors fan.
Rockets looked pretty poor. Playoff buddy's good call. He hit 9 threes in the game, which is a Game 7 record.
Tied Dante DiVincenzo
okay.
of last year.
Apologize, Dante. Didn't mean to, erase your record as well. Y'all share it. But it was a good game for y'all. I mean, it's 10-17 on Sunday, so the game literally just ended. All the round one series are complete, and we'll get into all of that in a second. But first, Sanders, how are you doing?
I'm great. The first podcast that we recorded and posted today had audio.
Big win.
Yeah, and we just tested the setup again, even though nothing has changed. We've just been sitting here watching basketball for like 3 hours.
Sure.
But yeah, retested the setup, and we have audio still, so we're good to go. We're just gonna keep rolling. Yeah. What do we want to start with? We want to review.
I was going to say shout out Sovereignty for winning the Kentucky Derby, but now we can continue.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now we can
Hop into what's, part of the show. And really all we have is...
should I if we're shouting out, can I shout out Curtis Rourke, Saskatchewan Rough Rider legend?
Correct.
You can.
I think he was a second-round pick in the Canadian Football League draft that we broke down in depth on Wednesday's show.
That did not make the cut.
It was about a minute and a half of conversation about Canadian football. Maybe not even that long.
Still a very tough show to lose,
Yeah.
but we've bounced back well.
Yeah.
On the agenda for the show is really just NBA playoffs. We did our MSU sports recap in the previous show.
Yep.
So we can just kind of hop right into it. Like I said earlier, all the first round matchups have wrapped up, and so we may touch on some of the later ones that ended, but we're really going to be mainly looking ahead at round 2 matchups. What we expect to see in those. We actually had a round 2 game today. The Pacers won in Cleveland. They took game 1. Tyrese Halliburton has been amazing these playoffs, and that continued. Nimhard has also been great these playoffs. He's making himself a lot of money. Someone's going to give him a bag to start for their team to kind of, have a chance to kind of lead an offense on his own, probably in tandem with someone else, kind of a 1A, 1B type.
Mm-hmm.
But that will be fun to watch. Which series we have teed off first, Sanders?
I can
graphic
go
wise.
anyone. I have them labeled by name.
Well, why don't you just click the top one? It looks
All
like
right.
you have Cavs Pacers at the top,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is perfect because that's what we're already talking about, and that's
Yes.
when that started. The big news in this series is Darius Garland is hurt currently. He has a toe issue. Apparently, it's pretty severe, and he would be shut down for at least a couple weeks if this wasn't playoffs. But since it's playoffs, they're being a little more day-to-day, game-to-game with it. That means we are going to see Ty Jerome in a lot bigger of a role. Not that he's not already played a big role, but even more is going to be asked of him, which is even better of an audition for him come free agency.
Mm-hmm. He's going
Performed
to get paid, too.
all right tonight. Wasn't fantastic. I wouldn't say he was abysmal, but you're right. He's going to get paid. Cavs did not shoot well from 3 in this game, which was a worry down the stretch of the season. Garland's obviously not playing, but with Garland and Mitchell shot considerably worse post All-Star break than they did pre-All-Star break. They're both shooting like high 30% pre-All-Star break, and now it's like low 30% to close the season. Donovan Mitchell dropped 30 tonight, or 33, but it was on 30 shots, and he was 1 of 11 from 3. He scored 33. I'm not going to dog on that, but it's not really a great game holistically. You don't really want your points and field goal attempts to start with the same number.
Yeah.
Not a good sign. So, not great from them. And then the Pacers have honestly really impressed me these playoffs. I feel like so far my worst take of the playoffs is that I didn't really trust the Pacers going in. It feels like a very casual take. They're playing really good basketball. They played great basketball down the stretch. They know who they are. They're getting contributions night in, night out from the same guys. Halliburton he's a great point guard. He leads his team very well, and then the pieces complement each other around them really well. And this is a really tough round 2 test for Cleveland as a 1 seed. I feel like they kind of have to hate this draw. I understand second round, like all the teams are going to be good left, but I think I personally would rather play the Knicks than the Pacers.
Yeah, the Darius Garland injury is going to hurt them
For sure.
so much. The Pacers are a great basketball team, but they struggle with matchups where a team can do what they do better, which is
Sure.
why they struggled with the Celtics last year in the Eastern Conference Finals. But they were able to get past the Knicks when they were hurt because they'll fly up the floor. They shot 52% from three tonight, making 19 threes. And the threes came from everybody. Nembhard had 5. Nesmith had 4. Siakam had some. Benedict Mathurin had 3 off the bench. So the Cavs, it's going to be a tough matchup because the scoring comes in bunches from so many people for the Pacers. 6 guys in double figures, 4 guys with 17 or more points, and that's just not going to be a good matchup for them. Also, like, what's great about the Pacers as well is these guys that shoot all these threes and fly up and down the floor play really, really good defensively.
Yeah.
Benedict Mathurin is a great 3-and-D. Nesmith is one of the best 3-and-Ds in the game, and Nembhard is an excellent defender even at his size. And then you pair that with Miles Turner at the rim and Siakam, who's a veteran, savvy defender. They are a really, really good basketball team. They're just going to struggle against a team that can play their style better than them or a team that could control the pace. So for Cleveland, it's going to be key that they control the pace going forward in this series. Donovan Mitchell really has to take this at a slower pace. The Cavs are known to play at a fast pace as well, but I don't think it's going to favor them because they just don't have comparatively the same amount of scoring from all of these positions. And then as well, they just won't be as good on the defensive end.
Yep.
Ty Jerome is not an excellent defender. Max Strus is not. Sam Morril is not a great defender. They're great in the interior with Mobley and Jared Allen, but the Pacers shoot so many threes. And even like Miles Turner is not a post-up guy. This is just going to be a tough matchup for them all series long. I'm not surprised the Pacers took game 1. Cleveland had all those days off. The Pacers have played in a competitive series against the Bucks. And yeah, it's the playoffs, so we once again have been overreacting to one result.
Sure.
You watch one game, you think, oh, that's going to be the story the entire way. I fully expect Cleveland to take game 2. I believe they're favored by almost
9.5.
10. Yeah, 9.5 points in game 2, which is not surprising whatsoever. I'm curious what the spread was in this game. It was 8.5, so not too different. I think they'll play better in game 2.
It was 8.5, and Indiana won, and then the spread got larger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it grew by a point. They expect Cleveland to bounce back and really set the
Interesting.
tone.
Cleveland has to. I mean, going down 0-2 on your home court.
And it was also like it was a 9-point game, while it was realistically not as close as 9 points with the way the fourth quarter played out. But the Cavs shot 9 for 38 from 3, and the Pacers were 52%. So you expect a come down to earth and then a rise from both of those teams. So you expect it to be a lot closer in game 2. I still think Pacers cover the spread, but I expect Cleveland to win game 2. And going forward in the series, it feels like it's anybody's game, especially if Darius Garland isn't able to come back and give them impactful minutes.
Yeah, I mean, the 3-point percentage and even just the makes is kind of the glaring difference here, looking at the stat sheet. And obviously, the Cavs, you don't want to lose game 1, but I think it's pretty easy to look at that number and be like, we were right there outside of that, and just can go into game 2, basically. I don't really know what they changed, to be honest. It's just, it's hard. We've seen it many times in this playoff. It's like, man, this team really looks pretty lost, and it's like, hey, well, the other team shot 50% from 3. Thinking about the one Timberwolves game against the Lakers, where it was like, well, game 1 is what it was, and it was like, oh, this is going to be bad. And I mean, obviously, the Timberwolves ended up winning in 5, but it's just like when a team's hitting that many threes, it's just kind of like partially is like, what can you do? And you don't expect that to happen every game in a 7-game series. The biggest thing is Donovan Mitchell has to be a little more efficient in my eyes as the star. I mean, star to star matchup wise, Halliburton 22 and 13, 60% from the field.
They've got to set the tone better too. And
Sure.
They let a 10-0 run. They gave a 10-0 run to the Pacers to end the first quarter, and that basically took the crowd out of the game. And Cleveland's got a really, really good home crowd, as well as Indiana. So they just got to stay focused and be able to ride that storm and not get behind on the Pacers, because the Pacers are a team that when they get ahead, they're just going to keep chasing, and they're just going to try and build and build and build. and that's not a position you want to be in. You'd rather for the Pacers to be behind, and then when they shoot all of those threes mean so much more.
Yeah.
Because when you're shooting a 3 up 5 versus when you're down 5, the amount of pressure on you is completely different. A shot down 5, it's to cut it to 2 to make it a 1-possession game. A shot up 5, you're already up 2 possessions. We'll make it a 3-possession game. There's no pressure when you're up 5. So the Cleveland's got to do that and take advantage of that in game 2.
Down 5, it almost feels like it's like I need this 3, and up 5, it's like I want this 3, and that's just such a different feeling. So I completely agree.
It'll be this is it's a completely different, and this was the way it was in the Milwaukee series, style of basketball to what we're going to see in all of the other playoff series. This is just going to be ball flying up and down the floor, a ton of points scored. It's going to be like your typical regular season game where instead of like what we just watched with Warriors Rockets, where it's really just a slugfest and the over-under is only 200 points. So it'll be a nice breath of fresh air, and it'll be interesting. Whoever comes out of this series, they're going to have to more than likely challenge Boston. And we'll see who's up to the task. Darius Garland has to get back, though, for Cleveland to have any chance, realistically, in this series, in my opinion.
What's the maximum amount of time a series could take if it went to 7 games? Like if Knicks Celtics went to 7 games.
If this series went to 7, it'll end in 2 weeks from today. Less than 2 weeks. It'll end in 13 days.
Garland's got time, but it's also if this is a toe thing. It's the toe really has to be at 100% for him to be really effective. It's really hard to, play basketball when your big toe is, because that's just, it's the stabilizer of the foot.
It was always the part of my basketball shoe that I would wear out the first.
Yeah.
As I wore them over time.
Yeah, talking about, Cleveland's a very good team, so I don't want to, sit here and be like, oh, no, Darius Garland, they're kind of out of it. I think that's a little unfair to the season they've had. But you're definitely going to need guys to step up. You're going to need Ty Jerome to take what he's done off the bench and in a position where there's now more pressure on him to still perform as he has down the stretch. You're going to need bigger DeAndre Hunter minutes. Isaac Okoro probably gets a bit bigger of a role. You're going to need your shooters to hit shots. I don't know what, Strus was 2 of 8 from 3. Merrill he was 2 of 5. You're going to need those guys to hit shots. It's just the Pacers feel like one of the hottest teams in the playoff right now.
It's really tough to face a team that's going to fly up and down the floor and
Sure.
score all of those points when you are missing a 20-point per game score. That's just put you behind the 8 ball every single time.
And not just that, but also a minute standpoint of they're going to want to play fast. You're going to tire easily, and now you're also trying to make up minutes. The Pacers are just really hot right now. They're healthy as a whole. They're a very confident basketball team. So it's just
they were
they
the
love where
finals
they're
last
at.
year, so they've got that experience too.
Correct, and they've really put it all together this year and are playing very, very well. So I'm interested to see how Cleveland rebounds in Game 2. I guess after dropping Game 1 as the 1 seed in the East, what their mentality is going to look like.
Pacers, I think the real test for them in terms of where they are at as a basketball team is 1, will they finish this series out? But 2, it would be in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think they've gotten extremely lucky from an injury standpoint on back-to-back years now. Last year they played Milwaukee without Giannis, and then they played the Knicks when they were beat up, and this year they play Milwaukee without Dame for most of it, and now they're going to play the Cavs without Darius Garland. So I don't think I want to give credit to the Pacers, but I think they've gotten extremely lucky from an injury standpoint. The opposing team has just not been the same team when they've come to face them. So we'll, if Darius Garland returns, maybe that narrative changes. But for me, it pump the brakes on them. They're not among the best of the best yet, until they have proven it against a team that's at equal amount of health at least.
Sure,
in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense. But it's also talking about other. Boston's not necessarily healthy right now either. So if they get Boston in the, we're looking a long way ahead here. But if they get Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals,
yeah, that's what's the playoffs will do to you. Is we've watched Game 1 and now we've already advanced the Pacers to the second round.
Overreactions to the max for sure. I mean, I don't want to discount this Cavs team. They're the 1 seed for a reason. They had a great regular season, and they have a lot of really good basketball players. But you just you got to love where the Pacers are at right now. Not just after game 1 and in this series, but just kind of looking back the past couple of months and how they've been playing basketball. Sanders, you got anything to add?
No, I don't know anything about the Pacers or the Cavaliers.
I think the biggest thing for the Pacers, and we've seen it down the stretch, is they have to have someone to kind of play this be like the second guy to
Sure.
Tyrese, if that makes sense. And I feel like a lot of times they're doing it by committee right now, whether it's Nembhard or Siakam.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always had this guy that has stepped up and helped with the scoring. And then outside of just the second guy, I mean, down the line, I mean, you said 6 guys scored in double figures or something like that. But they're just doing a really good job of, I mean, just stepping up and helping their guy, not making him have to do too much, because his best strength is as a passer, realistically.
absolutely.
And so just knocking down shots for Tyrese, cutting for him, getting open, and then he'll score when he needs to or can find his opportunities. But he's just really a great passer, and so they play really well around that.
All right, you want to?
Let's go to the next series.
Do we want to pick winner? Did we pick winners of the first round? Pick winners of the series?
We did.
Yeah.
Do we want to pick winners of this next round?
We can.
Sure, yeah. I would pick the Pacers at this point, having seen game 1
Yeah,
and hearing what I've heard about Darius Garland.
correct. The Garland injury is the difference maker for me. So I also would take the Pacers here, and it is like we saw game 1, and so one that gives us a data point, but also winning. They've won a road game now. Now it's they just they can
control home court.
They control home court, and that's also huge. So I would pick the Pacers as well.
I'm gonna pick the Cavaliers. Pick the 1 seed, the better
Sure.
team allegedly. I do not have a rhyme. I will not be rhyming. It is 10:30, and I
Unlucky.
work. Oh yeah, this is a separate podcast technically. So yeah, I was working baseball 16 hours yesterday, and then like 6-7 hours today. So I'm a little tired. No rhymes tonight.
It's all good. I think they'll forgive you.
Yeah. You want to go Celtics Knicks next up?
Well, yeah. Let's just finish off the East. Why not?
Yeah.
We also got to sneak our. We had a Giannis conversation on Wednesday. We have to be sure to bring
We
that.
can table that.
Well, yeah. Well,
Come back to it at the end of this.
Oh, at the end.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it. Okay, I was gonna say we could do it like a address Milwaukee losing to the. But yeah, we'll do it at the end. I
Let's
like
come
it.
back to it.
Yep.
yeah.
Knicks,
I
Celtics.
like coming back with it. I'm not honestly too excited about this series. I could be wrong, I guess, but we've seen what Boston has done to New York in the regular season, and it just wasn't pretty. And so I just don't talk about predicting a series. I'm gonna say it right now. I mean, I have the Celtics winning the series. I don't really see an avenue for the Knicks to pull this off. I also wasn't super impressed with the Knicks in round 1. I was very impressed with Jalen Brunson. I mean, unsurprisingly, he's shown that he's going to show up in the playoffs and be a playoff riser, and kind of shoulder the load for his team. But when you go up against a team like Boston, you need more than one guy to show up on a night in and night out basis. Boston has had decent success guarding Jalen Brunson. Drew Holiday's a great defender. I know he's kind of a little. I mean, Boston's health is kind of the scary thing right now. They got a lot of guys that are banged up and dealing with stuff. I think Drew is a hamstring issue. But then they also have length in, Jaylen Brown and Tatum, and they just got dogs. Peyton Pritchard, Derek White can defend really well. So overall, I mean, I don't really see an avenue for the Knicks here. What do you got, JP?
I do. I think
Really?
even after what we saw in the regular season, I think the Knicks are going to come into this series with a ton of confidence, actually. I think there's even a chance they could steal game 1. I think the X factor for them this series is going to be Karl Anthony Towns. He has to play really, really well for them to have any chance, and he has to be consistent. It's another thing. He's got to score 25 a game in this series. He's going to have to drop 30 in multiple games. But I think the Knicks match up well with the Celtics, even though we didn't see that in the regular season. I think defensively they'll turn it up. The big thing for them is Karl Anthony Towns, and then can they stay healthy throughout this series? Because I expect them to play 6-7 guys the entire length of the game. And I think it'll be a real interesting test for Boston, how they play, one, on their home court, where historically in the past few seasons they have not been good at home and in the postseason. They've actually been better on the road. I don't have the exact stat, but they've been better on the road. They have a higher winning percentage on the road than they do at home with this core of guys in these recent few years. And I think that will favor New York. They played really well in Detroit, won all 3 games.
Sure.
I don't think they'll have any fear of Boston going into the series. That is TD Garden, not the team. And I see an avenue for them. I think they win it potentially in 6, but realistically, it would have to be in 7, in my opinion. Boston is just, that's a team where if they're a perfect 7-game series team because they shoot so many threes and shoot at such a high level that, yeah, they're going to have a clunker here and there, but if they're not going to have, for them, probably 4 clunkers in a 7-game series. But I think New York steals one in Boston in these first 2, and then when they have home court, it'll be, I think the key to winning the series will be Game 3. If they can win Game 3, they win. They have a really, really good chance to win the series, regardless of what happens in Game 4. The pressure is on Boston, in my opinion. I don't think it's as on New York as much because they're not expected to win this series. In FanDuel odds, I think they're like Boston is a minus 900 favorite to win the series, and I think Knicks are going to take advantage of that, play with house money, and I think this version of New York with Karl-Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges is better suited to defeat a Boston team than last year's with DiVincenzo and Julius Randle.
Sure.
So I think I'd like the Knicks to have a chance to pull out this series. I would still probably take the Celtics, but I see the series going 7, and I think New York has a really, really good chance.
I feel like you got to pick the Celtics. So that was who you picked to win the championship, right?
No, I
You
picked
OKC. We picked Celtics.
You picked
Yeah.
Boston. Okay.
See, the thing about like the Knicks are playing with house money, I don't know if I agree with because of their offseason moves, and we heard they built this team to beat the Celtics, to stop the Celtics in the playoffs. That's what we heard all season. Obviously, the regular season results weren't great, and if they can't pull this off, we're going to go into an offseason of where do we go from here, right? And so I think they're actually under immense pressure to perform in this series and show that the moves were worth it and that they are a team that can legitimately contend for a title and compete against the top dog in the East. Additionally, just looking at how the series is going to play out, they traded for Mikal Bridges in the offseason, and I do think they wanted him to be a secondary creator offensively. And especially in that Detroit series, we really didn't see that. It was if Jalen Brunson wasn't creating, no one else was creating. You're going to get a deep cat 3. Someone was going to put up a tough midi or something like that, and I don't think you're going to get away with that against Boston like you managed to get away with it against Detroit because Detroit wasn't good enough offensively either. So when the Knicks were playing ugly offense, well, Detroit was probably playing ugly offense too, but I don't think the Celtics are going to play ugly offense. They'll probably have a game or two where their threes aren't falling, sure, but overall they're just not going to be as pressed offensively as Detroit was, and they have way more options offensively than Detroit was. I mean, I would kind of like the Knicks for the Knicks to prove me wrong. I don't like the Celtics team. I also just like parity in the NBA since it's a league that really doesn't have much parity often. But just based off what I've seen, I just am not thrilled with their ability to score with the Celtics overall.
I think I kind of disagree with you on the pressure thing. I think the pressure is on the organization. I don't think
I think the players are going to feel that too, though.
I disagree. I don't think the players feel that pressure. It doesn't feel that way when I listen to their post-game interviews and the way they talk throughout the Detroit series. I would be interested. I haven't watched like their pre-interview before this series yet, but I don't think they feel that pressure. I don't think Jalen Brunson feels really any pressure.
I think Jalen Brunson is going to perform regardless. That's not really my concern.
Mm-hmm.
My concern
it's more
is the secondary
guys that you brought in labeled as we are here to beat the Celtics.
I mean, I've just also not been impressed with Mikal this whole season overall. I think he's been disappointing as a whole, especially considering what they gave up to get him. I'm not saying he's had he's a bum or anything like that, but I don't think they've gotten what they wanted from him in terms of someone to alleviate Jalen Brunson's pressure and be kind of a pressure valve in the offense. And he's just not been that.
I think it's going to be an interesting. This is why I think the Knicks have a good chance to steal Game 1. Is they're going to be going into a series now where they just played like I think Orlando was like bottom 3 defenses in the league, and they're going to play New York, who is very stout defensively, with Tom Thibodeau and all their length and size, and athleticism. So I think it's going to be interesting matchup thing. And then the Drew Holiday, he's not reported to miss tomorrow night's game, but if he is hurt in any capacity in the series, I think it plays a huge factor for New York. I mean, I'm kind of saying picking New York, but just because
The Magic had the second best defensive rating in the regular season.
that I don't know where you're getting that stat from. That's not what I would.
In the NBA stats.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
tough.
what about points per game? In terms of,
Let me see if I can find points per game for you.
I just feel like
I mean, I don't know if I'd say they're the second best defense, but I don't know if I'd call them a bottom 3 defense either.
I feel like New York is going to surprise some people. I think this is something that we are continuing to see in these recent playoffs, that seeding isn't necessarily a thing that matters a ton. And I mean, we've seen it with Minnesota. We saw it with Dallas 2 years ago. We saw it Miami go as an 8 seed, go all the way to the NBA Finals. And I just don't think it's this Eastern Conference is going to be as chalky as people think. I really think New York's got a chance, especially if they can steal Game 1. Did you get that number?
Sorry, I got
Yeah,
this.
y'all talk about this stuff.
Yeah, pull it up. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I would like the Knicks to prove me wrong. They've just done nothing this season to show me that they have what it takes to pull this off in a 7-game series. Aside
Orlando's number 1. I don't know where I got that from.
aside
Yeah.
from the health concerns, I mean, they're a bad offensive team.
That's what I meant instead of defensively.
I mean, because that's the whole reason, in my opinion, Orlando made the playoffs is because they could defend fairly well when they couldn't hit a shot to save their life. But anyway, the biggest concern really is, and I think the avenue the Knicks maybe have is the Celtics are undeniably banged up. Even think about Jaylen Brown's knee. He apparently is getting injections
Yeah.
to even just play in this playoff. And I mean,
Who all do they have out besides him?
there's been some
Drew Holiday didn't play in Game 3, 4, or 5. So.
Correct. And then there's been some Kristaps Porzingis stuff, as there always is, it seems. And they've just also played a lot of games recently. I mean, they went all the way to the finals last year, and I mean, they won it.
And then
a lot of them played, or a
the
couple of them
Olympics.
played in the Olympics. And that's, more games and more just wear and tear. So that is, like, I can see an avenue where it's like, okay, wow, the Celtics are just really banged up. But also the Knicks are another team where we saw it in last year's playoffs, where just kind of the strain of all those minutes can also eat away at them as well as you get more and more into the playoffs. So, I mean, in terms of predicting this series, I mean, I have the Celtics, and I probably would say 6. I mean, I do think the Knicks are probably good enough to get a couple. We talked about, I mentioned the games where the Celtics are going to shoot bad from 3. They're going to take 43s and hit 8.
Yeah.
But I just think they're too much for the Knicks.
I got Knicks in 7.
I'll say Celtics in 7.
Yeah.
Heard?
So we all think it's going to be a good series. I mean, that's kind of reality. As you get deeper into the playoffs, you're just going to have more good series.
I mean, you would hope, yeah.
That's kind of the
Doesn't always work out that way, but
yeah. We want to go Thunder Nuggets or Warriors Timberwolves?
Thunder Nuggets.
All right,
yeah.
Thunder
Let's
Nuggets.
keep going order.
My question for this game, and I just saved a tweet that made me think about it. How much does this game affect the MVP race?
None.
None.
The votes have already gone in.
Oh,
No.
have they?
Yeah, the vote's already in.
Okay.
They're just waiting to be revealed.
There may be
Should
some
walk.
hindsight, say I don't know, Nuggets pull this off somehow and Shea wins MVP.
Yeah.
You'll hear about it, but then it actually just didn't matter because
Yeah.
people already
Maybe
casted
people
their
should have
votes.
realized that Jokic should have been the MVP before they voted or before this series. Anyway,
Yeah. Do you want to tee this one off, Sanders?
I mean, I will be interested to see what the Nuggets can do around Jokic, because that kind of seemed to be the theme of their losses in the first round was Jokic played well, even when they lost. And it was just kind of like, well, none of the other guys stepped up, so they couldn't do enough. except for the nights when, or there were the couple nights where
Well, you had the Jamal Murray game where he
Jamal
dropped
Murray
43.
game, 43, and then he had a couple other, like he scored 20 on a couple of other wins.
Yeah.
Um,
The biggest,
no, go ahead.
I was saying, the biggest, looking back at the Clippers Nuggets, it's the Clippers Nuggets. Yeah, the Clippers Nuggets series. I was right. Especially like game 7, and then I think it was game 5 that the Nuggets also won, was they looked way fresher and more explosive and faster than the Clippers. The Clippers came out flat or fatigued. I don't know what it was, but they just basically out-hustled, and it just kind of felt like they ran the Clippers off the court in those games, getting up and down, fast breaks. It's a game where this Nuggets team thrives because you got guys like Russell Westbrook who love to run. Jokic isn't necessarily like he runs like a weird fast break because he's obviously not the fastest player, but he's going to throw great outlet passes, and he can get down the floor pretty well for his size and make plays in the open court. And so that's where they overwhelmed the Clippers in a couple games, in my opinion, and where the series kind of how they really ended up coming away with the series, aside, a huge Jamal Murray game to steal one.
Yeah.
And then you got your Harden, game 7, James Harden, which he didn't have a good game. I don't think that's the reason they lost that game. There were a lot of other issues.
I think it was a big part. I think Harden took 8 shots.
Sure. I definitely think it was a part, but I don't know if Harden gives you – maybe if he comes out from the jump and sets the tone, it is different. But, I mean, just they came out so flat.
Yeah, but that's the problem is
Sure.
the way he played in Game 6 where he comes out and sets the tone and scores all those points in the first quarter. The way he played in Game 1, even though they lost, he came out and scored 15 in the first quarter. You cannot, in a Game 7, as the best scorer that season, come out and only shoot 8 times. That's just inexcusable. You cannot fall down to the role of just being a point guard. You don't have that right on that Clippers team. And there's not enough scoring going around for that to be possible because Norman Powell and Kawhi can only score so much before you're waiting on a role player to drop 15, 20 points.
Yeah.
So I don't think he should have set the tone. It was inexcusable the way he played in Game 7.
I mean, I agree it's inexcusable. I just think, like, Norman Powell has 9 points for a guy that had that good of a season. Zubac scores 10. Like, it was a collective. I mean, Kawhi came out and gave you 22 and was pretty good, but it just felt like it was a collective letdown.
But it happened, in my opinion, from watching the game, it was because they got to the point where, okay, now they were being forced to create the shots and hit the shots, and Harden didn't go out there and score 12, 14 points and then open up the passing lane. So while
Sure.
he had 7 assists, I think, in the first quarter. But from there, you can't only attempt 7 shots the second, third, and fourth quarter. Your other guys where they were getting a ton of their points, especially Norman Powell and Zubac, was because Harden or Kawhi were drawing these doubles and they were getting cuts to the rim, or Zubac was getting a guard on him and a switch, and that's where they were getting these easy baskets. I don't think you can put even if they played bad, I just don't think Norman Powell and Zubac should be at blame if they played bad in a Game 7. Your stars are supposed to carry you through in those moments, and Harden decided to fall back and play like Rajon Rondo and just go for assist all game for whatever reason.
I guess my last point is, like, we've talked about Zubac down the last stretch of the season. It's like, oh, he's a star now. And if he wants to be considered as a star, we need more in a Game 7. Just like, oh, James Harden is a star, we need more in a Game 7.
Sure. I don't think Zubac, though, is like a star scoring center like we're seeing out of Jokic or Şengün or players like that, or even Chet Holmgren. He's a prolific center who plays really good defensively, and he has to get the ball off post feeds and stuff or pick and rolls, but he's not a guy who's going to go out there and create his own shot.
Yeah. Kobe Brown outscored him, which doesn't actually matter. I mean, Kobe Brown got 13 points in garbage time.
Yeah.
But shout out Mizzou legend Kobe Brown. Anyway, we can get back on track because the Clippers lost. The Nuggets move on.
But it was still the best. I mean, it makes sense to talk about it. It was
the best series we had.
It was a great series.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I do wish it ended on a slightly better note.
Yeah.
We got a more competitive last game, but
I'm also
like
kind of
that's a
glad
little
it
greedy.
didn't because I didn't get a chance to watch it, and so it's like,
Sure,
okay, well,
that's
at least
fair.
I didn't miss the great Game 7. I saw the good games.
Yeah,
That's why you got to watch every single game, because then
Well, I was working baseball.
yeah, it's like we're like game 1 and game 2 were like, oh wow, those felt like game 6s and game 7s.
yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed to game 7 itself.
Also, it's hard. I was very much rooting for the Clippers in this series, so I'm also biased in that sense of being like, man, that Game 7 was a letdown because the Clippers were a letdown. Just because I'm such a big Kawhi guy, and for him to just do his thing and no one else really show up stings.
Yeah.
But Nuggets Thunder is the round 2 matchup. Thunder have had like a week break at this point.
They, since April 11th, they have played 4 games. They will that's 24 days. Not the team, but their starters, their 5 starters, because they rested their starters to end the season, have played 4 games in 24 days.
Are you at all worried about that being too much rest?
Oh hell no!
Okay.
I don't think that's the case at all for the Thunder.
I agree. I was just curious.
I think and on top of that, they're already young
Yeah.
and youthful, and we saw that in Game 5 and Game 6 with Houston and Golden State, where the young bodies just continued to be able to push and keep the pace, and that was even the case in spots in the Pistons-Knicks series.
Yeah.
The Pistons' bodies just were outworking New York. I think that favors Oklahoma City a ton, especially with Denver basically playing 6 to 7 guys. I think they're going to be in a really good spot. They have, in my opinion, the best home court in basketball in Oklahoma City. That crowd's going to be electric. I don't think it will rattle Jokic, but it has plenty of chance to rattle a guy like Michael Porter Jr. or Jamal Murray. And I think that favors the Thunder a ton.
Agreed.
I also think they kind of match up well with the Nuggets. I don't think they don't have a stopper for Jokic.
No one really does.
Yeah, but
though.
does anybody?
I mean, Zubats was kind of like the best Jokic stopper we had.
And Jokic had a triple-double in every single game. So I think they'll put Hartenstein on him, in my opinion, for a lot of minutes, and then they'll rotate Chet on him in a few spots. But I think for a big thing for them is they're going to be so good at defending the perimeter that even when Russell Westbrook and Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. get the ball on the perimeter, they're going to have Lou Dort or Alex Caruso or Cason Wallace or Shea on them. And I think that's going to really, really favor the Thunder. I think Jamal Murray's going to struggle a ton in this series. I'll be really interested to see how the Thunder defend the pick and roll.
Sure.
That's going to be a really key factor to this, because the Nuggets pick and roll with Murray and Jokic is one of the best we've ever seen in the history of the league. And if they are able to defend that well, the Nuggets basically have no options offensively besides Jokic go out there and create something crazy. And then on the offensive end, they're so fast, and everybody is a contributor. I think they're going to have a ton of fun on the offensive end as well. I think they're going to get the looks that they want in a lot of spots. X factor for Oklahoma City will be Jalen Williams, J-Dub. He has to be a scorer in this series. In the games, in my opinion, in games where he doesn't score 20 points, I think the Nuggets are in those games. But if he can get up to 20 points and Shea actually delivers where he's been at, which is around 32 points a game, then I don't think the Nuggets have any chance to keep up with the Thunder from a scoring perspective. I think defensively the Thunder are so good that Christian Brown isn't going to go for 15, and Michael Porter Jr. isn't going to go for 15, and Jamal Murray isn't even going to go for 30. So I think it favors Oklahoma City a ton in this series.
Yeah, I mean, simply put, the Thunder have a special defense. And talking about Jokic inside and who's going to stop Jokic, this is a perfect example, in my opinion, of a series where it's basically who cares if Jokic scores 30, because the Thunder have to feel very good about shutting down basically every other option. Maybe there's a chance Jamal Murray rises to the occasion, but outside of him, I just don't know who's going to be on their team is going to be able to handle the ball pressure that OKC is going to be able to bring with Lou Dort and Alex Caruso and their other Isaiah Joe. I mean, all the guys that they have to throw. And talking about all the guys they have, it could be Game 7 of this series. I personally don't even think it gets there, and they're just going to still be having guys flying around, getting up in Jamal Murray's face, Christian Brown's face, all those guys, and I just think it's gonna. I mean, I don't think the Nuggets are gonna be able to handle it, and that's gonna turn into turnovers, and then what fuels an offense. Talking about having a lot of fun on offense when your defense is going crazy and causing havoc, it just makes offense that much easier.
That was the story of the Grizzlies' blowout games in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Was they were creating so many turnovers and steals, they were just getting free runouts and wide open threes in transition. Two things. One, Jamal Murray in 4 games. One game he scored 34 against the Thunder this season, but in the other 3 games, he scored no more than 17 points. I expect that to be a consistent factor. And then Jokic averaged 25, 16, and 12 against the Thunder this season. I think the biggest storyline, though, on for me at least, because it had so much of a nostalgia factor, I guess, to it, a childhood love. It's going to be really interesting to see this. Will be the first time ever for Russell Westbrook to return to Oklahoma City in the postseason.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really, really cool. There'll be some emotional moments, 100%, because he was such a playoff performer, specifically, especially in Oklahoma City at home. Some of his biggest and best moments were in that building, and for him, it'll be really interesting to see how he plays. And for the Nuggets, hopefully at least 3 games in Oklahoma City. I think that'll be the biggest storyline, though, of the series, for me at least, in my opinion. We'll see
I mean, it was
That's a good
how
call.
he plays, how the crowd reacts to him. It kind of has that feeling of like how would the Luka and Dallas feel, but now it's on a postseason stage, and you have this new regime of Oklahoma City, this new young core that reminds you so much of the old Oklahoma City core. It'll be really interesting to see.
I mean, he had that dunk against the Clippers in Game 7, right? Was that because I assume there was some bad blood or tension there because it used to be a Clipper?
Yes, they traded him for Chris Dunn.
Okay.
They traded Russell Westbrook to the Utah Jazz for Chris Dunn this offseason. And then Westbrook ended up in Denver, so that was like a go to hell, guys.
Yeah, I was about to say he's
traded.
He's not afraid to take
me
a
for Chris
technical to kind of let people know.
He is a guy that plays with a lot of emotion, both good and bad, in the sense of that is going to mean he's going to make some really dumb mistakes, and it also is going to lead to some really cool moments. But it's a very interesting dynamic for sure.
Yeah, and if he was willing to do that against the Clippers, I feel like OKC is an even bigger part of his history.
This is another thing too, and this makes me raise like half an eyebrow because I don't actually think it's going to matter. But we saw youth get to the Thunder a little bit last year, right? And I think they were so much better than the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies just weren't in a great spot. I mean, it was a good sign to see them handle the Grizzlies the way they did, but this kind of feels like their first test postseason. And so it's like, are they going to just keep rolling and handle it and play how they have all regular season? We saw last year's playoff, some guys that had played well in the regular season and had helped Shea in kind of secondary and tertiary roles didn't have a very good series when it mattered. And so will they step up, and will they continue how they've played this season? Because they have stepped up as a whole this season, right? But this is a big test against a proven playoff team. I mean, we have championship winners on this Nuggets roster that have been there and done that. Personally, I don't think it's going to be a big issue. I think OKC is ready for the challenge and is just going to take it head on and play their ball. But it is just something that, like I said, I raised half an eyebrow at it. It's just something I did take note of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is, in my opinion, it's just a different version of this Oklahoma City Thunder. This is now the 3rd year being in the postseason.
Yeah.
The first year they were in the play-in, lost to the Pelicans, and then were the 1 seed last year. I also think this is a different version of Shea. I don't think he'll struggle offensively in this series. And he's done, as he's improved his numbers, points per game, he's up 2.4 from last season. But I also think they just have a better roster for the playoffs built around them, with Hartenstein and Alex Caruso.
Agreed.
And then Chet Holmgren being in his, and Jalen Williams being their second postseason. I think those help Shea a ton. They'll be great guys to lean on. Caruso and Hartenstein, I think, are going to be really key to keep that young core on track during this series.
Yep.
Especially with their effort on the defensive end. I think it really, really helps the Thunder in this series. I don't think they'll be in that spot. The Thunder they're the biggest favorite in this second round of the playoff series going on right now. I don't know what Cleveland was prior to the series, but they're minus 900. The Boston Celtics are minus 820.
I think the Celtics were also minus 900 to start the series, so I think it was the exact same.
Yeah, so they are heavily favored. Vegas views this the same way that they view Boston and New York. And for a lot of the public, that is like that's not how we view it. I think a lot of the public thinks that Denver has a really good chance in this series. I don't see it that way. I just don't think. I said this throughout the Clippers series. I just don't think Denver has enough bodies to be able to compete with a team that plays more guys than them.
Yeah.
Now they were able to get through the Clippers series, but I mean a part of that was they had some really, really good breaks. Game 1, they were able to win off a game winner, and then Game 4.
Game 4,
they have the literally last second shot. You have the Jamal Murray game in Game 5.
you got to go against James Harden.
And then James Harden in Game 7. So I think the Nuggets kind of took advantage of that. And I really don't think I didn't think they were the better team throughout that series, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think if that series went to 9 games or 11 games, maybe the Clippers win it. And I just think they're going to – Oklahoma City's just a really bad matchup for them because they're able to play so many guys. And then on top of the fact that their starters have played 4 games in 23 days, I think, well-rested. They get to play the first game in front of their home crowd. I expect them to win Game 1 and Game 2 in Oklahoma City, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, and I feel like – I mean, we'll go from there, but I think they'll get Game 1 and Game 2, and at that point it'll just feel like the series is over.
I think it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how does that feel. I think Game 3 is the game of the series, especially if Denver steals one in Oklahoma City. But even if they don't, it'll be interesting to see how Oklahoma City plays on the road against what we are saying now is a big test. We saw it in the Grizzlies series. Those 2 games were closer than they should have been.
Yeah.
Those were Grizzlies teams that realistically gave up. They get lucky in Game 3 because John Morant gets hurt, and then or Game 4 because John Morant. No, Game 3 because John Morant gets hurt, and then Game 4 was close all the way throughout the game. As Mont would attest, as he was there in the building, as was Josh Hubbard.
Really?
Yeah, Josh Hubbard was sitting like 3 rows in front of Mont.
Are we allowed to dox Josh Hubbard and use his name like
Yeah.
that?
Yes,
I think we are.
absolutely. We've already mentioned him multiple
Given
times on
that
the
we've
podcast.
never interacted with him and we're not really friends.
Yeah. No, for sure.
But yeah, I think it'll be Game 3 is the game of the series for me. I think if the Thunder are able to play well in that game, even if they lose, they would have full control of the series. But if they just don't play well in Game 3 and then even in Game 4, Denver is more than capable to steal a game in Oklahoma City, and that changes the entire series for me. So Game 3 is the game of the series. With that, though, I'm going to take the Thunder into 5. I think the Nuggets, having played a 7-game series and playing all their guys those minutes, I think that we're going to have some close games. It's the playoffs, and this Thunder team is still young. But I think the Thunder are just too big of a mismatch for Denver in this series.
I was actually going to... So the point you made about the Nuggets are minus 900, or the Thunder minus 900 favorites to win the series, and like how the public is higher on the Nuggets. So if you look at the spread, it's minus 9.5 OKC for Game 1, and then Cavaliers, Pacers, and Knicks, Celtics are also all 9.5. That feels like a really close. Like I feel like the Thunder should be favored by more.
I think it's.
I'm just curious, like what's going on there that like. I don't know. The Thunder were the best team in the NBA this season, and the Nuggets just finished a 7-game series. Like I feel like they should be. Is 9.5 kind of the cap of a playoff game?
I think they could have been. No, the 9.5 definitely wouldn't be the cap. They were probably like 15.5 point favorites in Game 2 against the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be the reason the spread is where it is because the Nuggets won in the public's eyes have a lot of. Confidence in them defending, or they're NBA champions 2 years ago. They've proven that they can do this. And the Thunder, for them, it'll be just rust. They haven't played in so long. That I think that Vegas thinks that the first quarter will go to the Nuggets, and then it'll be close throughout the rest of game one. I don't see it that way. I think with the way they responded after resting their starters for a week and a half before playing the Grizzlies in game one, and then you go out and win by 50 points, I don't think it'll be any different with Denver. I think
they'll be
Oklahoma
chomping
City-
at the bit, ready to go.
I think Oklahoma City covers that spread easily. Like, even Shea was terrible in that game one, but their team and that crowd was just so ready to go that they just overwhelmed Memphis, and I think we could be in for a similar thing.
I do think Denver is going to be harder to overwhelm,
Agreed.
Easily, yeah.
but yeah, I
They
would
have
also,
so much consistency with Jokic that they're just going to continue to hang around in this series.
Yeah, I would also pick Oklahoma to cover that spread.
I
would also pick Oklahoma to win in 5.
I also have Oklahoma in 5, so we're all right there on
I
that.
just don't. I think that Denver is too good to get swept, but
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma is too good to lose more than one.
Sure. I don't disagree with that analysis. Good stuff, Sanders.
Yeah,
we can go
I try.
to the last of the 4 round 2 matchups, which is the Warriors versus the Timberwolves. Timberwolves. The Warriors finished off the Rockets in Game 7 tonight off of a huge game from Buddy Hield, as we mentioned in the opener. And Houston kind of went back to their pre-Game 5 and Game 6 woes of Fred VanVleet wasn't great and Şengün had a tough time scoring. Amen Thompson was probably the best Rocket tonight.
Easily.
And so, but the Warriors move on to round 2.
I do want to say, in the 7 games played, in games where Jalen Green didn't score 10 or more points, the Rockets lost all 4 games. And then they were 3-0 in games when he scored in double figures. We can add the Rockets to those teams with the Bucks that we can break down at the end of where they go in the offseason. That's going to be an interesting question for them. The Warriors' veteran presence showed up tonight. Buddy was outstanding and huge. Steph didn't score but 3 points in the first half and then has 19 in the second half. Jimmy Butler had key buckets down the stretch. Draymond started off hot with 8 points early. And then you got big minutes from Kevon Looney, in my opinion. He had 4 rebounds and really he had a plus minus of 0. And it was key for the Warriors. The Rockets were -9 in the Steven Adams minutes, which was the big story of the series. They were basically, I think they were plus 43 after 6 games with the Steven Adams minutes and minus 29 in minutes without him. So that was the key to the game, was the Steven Adams minutes were just not as good, and the offensive rebounds just really weren't there for the Rockets. They had 14 in this game, which was kind of a similar number to the minutes or the offensive rebounds they had in other games in this series, but the second chance points just weren't there for Houston tonight. And that was kind of the key to the series.
Yeah, I mean, if Houston isn't
Or the
getting
game.
the second chance kind of rebounds and therefore second chance points, their offense is just really limited in half court. And then, I mean, what did Fred? I'm just curious because Fred was really good in games 5 and 6.
He was 1 for 4 in threes that actually mattered. He hit 2 threes at the end of the game.
Gotcha.
So he had 11 points up until that point, 1 for 4 from 3, and 4 for 11 from the floor.
Yeah, but I mean, Jalen Green is really. I mean, after this we can table it till the end of the show. But he's been the disappointment of the Rockets' rebuild so far. Not just in this series, but overall. But the Warriors are the team that moves on, and then they get the Timberwolves in round 2, which is a much tougher test than the Rockets. A much better offensive team are the Timberwolves. Talk about someone that is an alpha scorer and just kind of a dog on the court. Anthony Edwards is a guy that can take over games late and can get the Timberwolves wins down the stretch. And besides that, I mean, they handled the Lakers very well in round 1. I do think the Lakers, we saw the limitation of the Lakers come out, and the Timberwolves did a very good job of exposing them and capitalizing on them. But it was definitely a very limited Lakers teams in terms of what they could do rotation-wise and game plan-wise. But
I mean,
the
they
Timberwolves just
left 5 guys on the court for an entire half.
Correct.
That's how limited they were rotation wise.
Yes. But I mean, the Timberwolves just manhandled them. I mean, even the last game, they couldn't hit a 3, and they just had other ways to win because Rudy Gobert decided to have the best game of his playoff series.
And Luka would not box out for a defensive rebound. Defensive rebound.
He
Correct.
would do anything.
Yeah.
He was just letting everyone crack
He was
the offensive
beanbag.
boards.
He was
yeah.
beanbag.
It
But
looked like me in intramural basketball, just standing there watching the ball.
yeah. I'll let you go first as the Warriors fan, though, JP. How you feel about the Warriors going into this series and into this matchup? What you like about the matchup? What you dislike about the matchup?
I hate the matchup for the
Sure.
Warriors. I hate it. I think the Timberwolves win this series in 5 games. I'll just go ahead and put that out there. I think the Timberwolves are really, really well matched up to defeat the Warriors in the series. Golden State already struggled with size against Şengün and Steven Adams, and now you have Gobert and Julius Randle. Now I think that could be interesting. We'll see how that works. I think Jimmy Butler could match up with Julius Randle easily. Buddy Hield could even match up with him. And Gobert isn't the offensive threat that Şengün is. But they don't really, on top of that, then they don't really have a guy who can defend Ant. I don't think Gary Payton is going to be great against Anthony Edwards in this game.
Sure.
And in this series, I think Ant's just too big, too athletic, too fast, all of those things. It'll be interesting for the Timberwolves how they play. If the Warriors are able to somehow take game 1, I think the Warriors didn't win the series. But if the Timberwolves can handle their business, they really need to win the first 2 games. And then if they win the first 2 games, they're fine. This series will be every other day, except between game 4 and game 5, it's a back-to-back. And that favors the Timberwolves a ton, especially with the Warriors coming off a 7-game series. And the Warriors will then have to travel back to Minnesota. So if the Timberwolves are able to win game 1 and game 2, steal one on the road, whether it's game 3 or game 4, they're going to be in a unique advantage for game 5, and that's why I think they win this series in 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the matchups to beat the Warriors. Steph is going to have to be big in this series. Jimmy Butler against his former team will be interesting. It'll be the first time he's played.
Jimmy Butler played at the Timberwolves?
Feels like 800 years ago.
Yeah,
but he did.
He led Minnesota to the playoffs. They were an 8 seed, and then there was a big drama where Jimmy Butler showed up to a practice. He took the bench guys, the bottom 4 guys on the bench, and he beat the Timberwolves starters. And then he basically said "F you" to all of them, and then walked out and basically got traded immediately after to the Sixers. And it was a big drama piece. He was calling Karl Anthony Towns the P word. And stuff like that.
So this was in what, like mid 2010s?
This was 2017 or so.
Yep.
Yeah,
How
pre-COVID.
that doesn't? How long was he at the Sixers for?
He was with the Sixers for, I believe, a year.
And he was because he went to the Bulls first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
He was a Chicago Bull, was where he was drafted, and then he would eventually end up in Minnesota, and then with the Sixers, and then with Miami, and then he's here in Golden State.
Okay, that just seemed. I mean,
I
moved
have,
around a
I
lot.
have a vivid memory, and I'm almost like this can't be true, but I feel like Jimmy Butler did an interview about it on a fishing boat.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Which is just so random, but I really want to go back and watch that interview now. But it was wild times. Jimmy Butler is not the coolest person on the planet. He's a bit of a hothead. I think he maybe has a screw loose.
2018 is when he left. He was there
2018.
2017, 2018 at Minnesota.
And then he was traded to Philadelphia.
Yep, and was there for a year, and then Miami for 6, and now he's at Golden State.
Yep.
Yeah. But that is interesting. That there's another interesting wrinkle in terms of someone that was Russell Westbrook is a well-loved OKC Thunder, and I don't think Jimmy Butler is a well-loved Timberwolf with how it ended. But I just want to say there's strong feelings about both players going in, even though they're not the same strong feeling.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I don't like the matchup for the Warriors either. Bad analysis here, but the Timberwolves I feel like are the better team. They are the better team. Even Jaden McDaniels had a great first-round series.
Mm-hmm.
Can he keep that going? I understand the Lakers' defense was bad, but I don't necessarily know who matches up against him defensively.
He's a
against
very big matchup problem.
Podzimski's going to have to guard him some.
I'll
Are
be
they
interested to see if they play
Moody?
Kuminga in this series for some
I
reason.
feel like they're going to have to.
I I thought they had to in the Houston series.
And they just didn't. I mean,
And
they did
just
in Game
refused
7. But
they wouldn't have played him tonight if Gary Payton was healthy, though.
yeah, you're right.
So I think they have to play him in this series.
I just feel like at this point they're not. I feel like they've closed that door. So I'm almost. I mean, I guess Gary Payton was hurt tonight. If they don't play Kuminga, who's the other option?
To defend Jaden McDaniel?
No, just like who could they have played in Kuminga's stead tonight?
Oh, I would have just played more minutes for Kevon Looney.
Gotcha.
He only played 11.
I guess
He
I'm just
played.
like, I know Gary Payton was hurt, but I'm surprised that with the way it feels like they've shut the door on Kuminga that they even played him tonight. Because I mean, he hadn't touched the floor of the series. It just felt very final, and it still feels very final.
I think they wanted to test him in the stopping Steven Adams minutes, and then those minutes didn't really go well. Kuminga was -4 tonight.
Yeah.
He played a few more minutes in the second half and actually brought that back up. I think it was like -6 before those minutes in the second half. But yeah, they would have played Kevon Looney more minutes if they were given that option. But I do think they have to play
Sure.
Kuminga in some capacity in this series because Minnesota is also a team that can score a ton of points and score in bunches. And when you face a team, it's kind of like what I was saying with the Pacers earlier. When you face a team that can score a bunch of points, but then they also play really well on the defensive end, it's just a bad matchup.
Yeah.
And the Warriors are not a prolific scoring team. Steph is only averaging 24 in the playoffs, and Jimmy Butler's averaging 18. Of course, they were playing the Rockets, so that's that part of the story. But even in the regular season, Steph was only averaging 24 a game, and Butler was only averaging 18.
Yeah.
So Kuminga, though, was a 15-point per game scorer in the regular season.
And he's someone who can run and get up and go and is athletic and long. It's something the Warriors really don't have outside of him on this roster.
They need some guys to match up with the athleticism and the youth of Minnesota, in my opinion, in this series. And if they somehow get past Minnesota and were to face the Thunder, like they're going to need Kuminga in that series as well because he is one of those guys that can do the same thing that those Thunder players can do. So they've got to play him in some capacity in this series. I'll be interested to see how Ant plays because there were even in this Lakers series he wasn't prolific. In the closeout game he had 16 points or something.
Yeah, didn't shoot the 3-ball well
Did
at
not
all.
shoot the ball. Well, they had the worst 3-point shooting percentage in NBA playoff.
It was not
history.
just him that didn't shoot the 3-ball. They should beat the Lakers by 30 in that final game.
But I think he has to be a key scorer because I really expect Draymond Green, similar to the way he played really well against Şengün, I think he's going to shut down Julius Randle and really keep Julius Randle to maybe 12 points a game.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then Anthony Edwards has to be the 30-point per game scorer for the Timberwolves to be able to control this series because unless Naz Reid is going to then become the 15-point per game scorer, Minnesota then runs into the problem of they don't have enough scoring in this series. But it's going to be a really fun series. There's so many emotions. Jimmy Butler returning to Minnesota. You have Draymond Green versus Rudy Gobert. That's going to be really interesting.
Anthony Edwards has been dispatching the kind of old era one by one throughout these past couple
trash
playoffs.
Talking them and big. Anthony Edwards versus Jimmy Butler is going to be really fun. Those feel like similar players from a playing style perspective, and we'll see if Anthony Edwards can.
Both have been rumored to be sons of Michael Jordan.
Also true. That's an interesting one to think about as well. Mike Conley has had, his fair share of playoff series against the Warriors back with the Grizzlies and even with Utah. So it'll be interesting to see how this series goes. I think it'll be obviously Warriors fan. It'll be the series I am most intensely watching, but I think it'll also be the most intensely watched series of the four for the public as well.
I agree.
Y'all haven't made a pick on this series. What do y'all got?
I mean, I got the Timberwolves in 6 is what I'm going to say. I don't really have a great reason for the 6 game by game wise, except it just feels like the right number. I'll give the Warriors a couple. But I mean, talking about if Draymond shuts down Julius Randle, you're going to need Anthony Edwards to step up and score a ton. And this is the perfect matchup for him to do that in. I think he's come a long way since last playoffs as well in terms of not forcing it / he would get last season be like, okay, if it wasn't working, you could see him get kind of flustered and a little frustrated at times. And I think that's gone away a lot, where he's able to kind of calm himself down after a couple misses or what, and just kind of keep playing his game and keep getting to his spots. So I think that's huge in a series where he may need to like carry the load. So yeah, I got Timberwolves in 6.
I'm gonna go Timberwolves in 7.
Okay.
Just going back to JP's thing about having guys that can win you games.
Mhm.
I think Steph wins 2, and then Jimmy wins 1, and then the Wolves take the other 4.
Who you got winning the 4 games for the Timberwolves?
And all 4.
That is, I mean, that's completely fair.
I mean, that's kind of
that's completely possible.
You'll probably get a couple of Ant, and then you may get another kind of game 1 of the Lakers, a collective Nas Reed, Jaden McDaniels game.
Yep.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's all 4 second round matchups.
I've got them trading for LeBron before Game 7, and then
okay.
he gets.
Well, LeBron's
That's a
hurt
trade
right now, so he
deadline,
can't
so-
play.
I've got them trading for Bronny.
I don't even know.
What?
Yeah, there's no way they could acquire LeBron. I don't think you can release him and then. I know you can sign free agents right now, but I don't think you could release him and then be able to sign him. I don't think that.
No,
would
that,
work.
in that case, I'm gonna have to pick the Warriors.
But,
no, I'm picking Timberwolves in 7.
Warriors are 3-1 against Timberwolves this season. None of those games were post Jimmy Butler trade, so
All right,
interesting
Something
thing
to think
look at.
about.
and yet you picked the
That's-
Timberwolves.
Well, I'm looking for things to give hope
Okay,
to myself at least.
okay.
But no, I mean I was actually the most beating the table down on the Timberwolves here. I had them at 5, y'all have them 6 and 7. So
Yeah. And I think it's funny that you gave your little thing about guys winning games. I don't think did you ever have Brandon Pajemski winning a game for the Warriors
no,
as
but
the guy?
he did in the Houston series. So
Yeah,
And then Buddy Hield
in
got
Game
one.
Buddy
7.
Hield won a game as well.
So if I'm right and Steph wins 2 and Jimmy wins 1, then you just need either Brandon Pajemski or Buddy Hield to show up and win 1,
Or
Yeah.
Kevon Looney. I mean, let's
Yeah.
be real here.
or Quentin Post. I mean, he could drop 8 threes.
that would seem like a stretch.
Sure.
But
I've seen he can shoot it.
we'll see. The Warriors, they need to take game 1, which they're only 5.5 point favorite or 5.5 point dogs, but if they can take home court advantage, and then be able to take game 3 and game 4, then they're in a great spot. I don't see any way they win game 5 because it's on a back-to-back and they're traveling back to Minnesota. I don't see an avenue for that. I see an avenue for them to win Game 6 or Game 7 because they are so veteran-led, and between Game 5 and Game 6 are 3 days off, and between Game 6 and Game 7 are 2 days off. So they need to win one of these games in Minnesota, or they got to win both games at home to have a chance in this series, in my opinion.
Sure. I talked about in the round 1 with the Timberwolves too. They know they belong. They're led by Anthony Edwards. They're not going to get scared of the moment, and that exact same thing is true of the Warriors with led by Curry and Butler. They find themselves in a Game 6 or Game 7 still alive, and I mean they're gonna believe that they belong, and they're gonna believe that they are like the favorite to win it, and that it's theirs to lose.
What's the
So-
farthest Harden has ever made it in the playoffs?
Conference Finals.
He's made the finals with the Thunder.
You're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he was a 6-man back then.
Really?
Yeah, he was a 6-man with the Thunder. I was a Thunder fan back then as well. It was a big debacle. They were playing Thabo Cephalosha over him. NBA legend Thabo Cephalosha.
Never heard of him.
You got to watch him. He was a G. Hawks legend as well. But yeah, Harden it was kind of a debacle. Like, why aren't we playing Harden and starting
Who'd they
him?
lose to?
Because they lost to Miami. That was
LeBron.
the second year of LeBron in Miami. After LeBron had lost to the Mavs.
Okay, so you took down.
They won game 1, but then they lost the series in 5.
Okay, so he took down the Spurs, I believe, in the Eastern Conference
Correct.
or Western Conference Finals.
Yes.
Unfortunately, because that was our powerhouse kind of era.
That was just
Spurs got him back the next year. Or
We did.
The year after that. I can't recall which one.
Yeah.
If not both.
I was just trying to
'Cause the Spurs are back
you
in the
said
finals.
like talking about experience, having been there, and then I was like, oh well, had the Clippers been there. And then I was just curious how far Harden had been. So and
They
then
have had a
Kawhi
ton of
won it.
experience,
Kawhi run
yeah.
it with the won
Why
it
is a
with the
two-time
Raptors.
Finals MVP?
with two different teams.
Raptors and Spurs.
Yeah.
With Spurs and
2014, the
14.
Spurs kind of. I'm not going to say that
Yeah,
they won it pretty easily, all things considered, against the Heat and how good the Heat were. But that Spurs team was pretty special, and Kawhi did about as good of a job as you can at slowing down
That was-
LeBron James.
and
as
LeBron
anyone
was
can.
a crybaby too
Well, yeah,
in that series.
that was right after the rebound boss back out to Allen.
Yeah,
we got our
the year
revenge.
after that.
Yeah,
So Heat
And-
beat the Spurs in the finals, and then the Spurs came back and beat the Heat.
Yeah.
correct. We
Game-
should have been back to back,
Kinda
but man,
Game 1, the AC was out, and LeBron had cramps, and didn't play well in Game 1. So the Spurs ended up taking Game 1. Bats
Would
were
you-
also flying throughout the arena, but
Oh.
that's a commonality in San Antonio.
yeah, Manu Ginobili has swatted a bat out of midair in a game before.
That's crazy.
But yeah, it was for me. It was a big joke because, brother, you live in Miami and you can't play when there's no AC on. Like, how are we cramping up, kind of thing. You
Yeah.
play for the Miami Heat. But yeah,
All right. Do we want to? I'm gonna go and turn off that. We can say we're done breaking down the games. Do we want to address the Bucks?
Let's do it real quick. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
real
can,
quick.
we can address the Bucks and the
Rehash-
Rockets as two people. I feel like,
and the Pistons,
and the Pistons,
and the Clippers,
The only
and the Lakers.
all of them.
the only team the Lakers I could talk about.
Give it to us.
I cannot talk about the Grizzlies. Okay, well maybe I can talk about the Grizzlies.
We don't. They don't deserve to be talked.
Let's just go Bucks. We had this conversation Wednesday. What do you do with Giannis and Antetokounmpo? Giannis.
How did you say his last name?
I don't know. I just
You don't know how to say his last name?
I always forget.
Antetokounmpo.
Antetokounmpo.
Antetokounmpo. There's been so many
Antetokounmpo.
pronunciations.
Antetokounmpo.
For like the first 3 years when he was really good, there were 7 different pronunciations
Yeah.
by people.
I think people were just trying to say it really
Broadcasters.
fast, so no one was really sure what they were saying. It'd be like,
And now-
"That's Antetokounmpo."
Yeah, now people have got it actually down. So
Yeah.
Antetokounmpo.
Mike Breen would say Antetokounmpo. I forgot what Kevin Harlan would say, but yeah,
It was like Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, people.
yeah,
tried
it
Sure.
was kind of like
Yeah.
that,
and
Tunga Viola.
Pete Spurs was like Alabama, Clemson. I've got a college football analogy for everything. But what do you do with Giannis? Next year is the final year of his contract. His number 2 guy, Dame, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Just tore his Achilles, and he is old. Giannis is getting older. He's 30.
Mhm.
So, do you try and build around him for another go? Do you try and convince him to come back? Do you just kind of say, screw it, we can't do anything, but we don't want to trade him and just suck next year and be okay with that? Or do you trade him? And those are kind of the different options we discussed. Let's rediscuss it. The way I kind of explained it, and also the issue is I view everything through the lens of like if I were building an NFL team, and it's just not the same as building an NBA team. But if I were the Bucks, my approach would be, we will not be able to build a team around him. We do not have the draft capital, and we do not have the money, the cap space to put players around him, with Dame out for at least part of next season,
all of next season.
all of next
It's
season.
an Achilles tear in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And he's in his 30s,
he's 34.
34. So if he ever comes back, it probably won't be the same as pre-Achilles tear. So with the draft capital they have and the cap space, I don't think you can build around Giannis, and I don't think that there's any point in hamstringing yourself and saying, well, we can't trade him because he's too good, so let's just not win it next season, because you cannot, with Giannis and a team of guys that are not good enough to, support him against the Celtics or the Cavaliers. You're not going to win it next year. You're not going to make it out of the East Finals, and then you're not going to go up against the Thunder. And you're not going to go up against the Timberwolves, and you're not going to win that matchup. So I'm just kind of like, well, if you aren't going to win it, trade him to the Lakers or something. I don't know, not the Lakers, but trade him away, and bring in some picks, and then start a rebuild. I kind of think you're going to have to go rebuild mode. JP?
Go to Jack first.
Jack?
Yeah, I mean, once again, we technically have already talked about this, but it's just
No, we haven't. We haven't.
You're right.
Talked about
We've
it
not
yet.
talked about
You're
this.
right.
Giannis is a top 3 player in the NBA.
Yeah.
Finding that caliber of a player is next to impossible. You almost have to get lucky. Think about Spurs winning the lottery to get Wemby. I'm not saying Wemby's a top 3 player yet. but he has that level of potential. Drafting a skinny kid out of Greece named Giannis that turned into this monster. I don't think anyone really saw it coming in the draft process. But it's just so hard for me to want to part with a guy like that because who knows when someone of that caliber is going to come through your doors again. They could get 10 draft picks and draft no one close to that level. Obviously you get multiple players, so, it's not a one-to-one value in terms of like, well, we got one draft pick and it turned into a guy that is a solid starter. But it's just, especially if you think you can somehow convince Giannis to, like, you can show him a plan and you can say, stay with us. We have a vision to build this team. I don't think he'll re-sign there, but he's not come out and said, I will not re-sign there.
What picks do they have? Do you know?
None. They don't have any picks for the next 5 years.
They have
the pick swaps.
They have
pick
a second
swaps.
round pick in this year's draft. The Pelicans own the right to pick swap with them in the following year's draft for whichever one is better. And then in 2027, they have to also give the New Orleans Pelicans the better of first-round picks. 2028, they have to give Portland Trailblazers the better. They don't own their own first-round pick until 2031.
Yeah. So it'd be hard it'd be hard to show Giannis a path for him to stick around.
Yeah.
But you have to exhaust all possibilities to make that happen. And the big trades typically happen in the offseason. But I don't think they're going into this offseason like Giannis' free game on the market. Just because, I'm like thinking of theoretical hauls, right? Say you go to the Rockets and the Rockets go, we'll give you
Reed Shepherd. Right, we talked about you.
We'll give you.
They're gonna have to get more.
We'll give you
not just Reed Shepherd.
We'll give you we'll give you Reed Shepherd. We'll give you
Şengün.
Sure. Personally, if I'm the Bucks, I'm like, I don't really want Şengün.
These are just
we'll give
some
you
of the names we threw out
That's
Wednesday.
crazy.
These are some of the names we threw out Wednesday when we were saying you have to go to a young team who can also win now and say, we will take a couple of your young guys and your picks.
I'm just
and
saying.
we're going to give you a top 3 player in the NBA to go with your talented roster to try and win.
Yeah, but I'm just like not trying to dog on Şengün, but the thought of trading Giannis for Reed Shepherd, Şengün, and some picks sounds pitiful comparatively to who Giannis is. I think my biggest thing is what I'm saying is I get the fact that there is probably going to come a time where they have to trade Giannis because Giannis is going to say, I'm not going to re-sign here.
Right.
But you are not going to get a package that is worthy of Giannis. You can get your best offer.
Yeah.
But you're not, in my opinion, you're not going to get someone to give you a package that is equivalent of the value of Giannis. And that's what sucks because of how valuable it is having a top 3 to 5 player in the NBA.
I guess, JP, would you like to go or can I?
Yeah, I would like to
go for it.
For one, we have Giannis's contract wrong. He's under contract for the next 2 seasons.
So that's also a big.
That is.
They have a little more time.
And then he has a player option.
What is that?
That basically means he gets the decision to accept it and play another year, or he can decline it, go into free agency.
Which the way it's trending, he probably would decline. But
it depends on how he's playing in 2 years. It's
true.
He would be declining $63 million.
That is true.
So would you decline $63 million, sir?
You offering? Because
exactly
right now, if you told me, hey, $63 million, go hoop in the Sanderson, I'm taking it. But
yeah, but then again, he'd be like Jack said, he's in a spot where he could decline it because he could get a contract where he's guaranteed.
What age season would that be?
He would be
32, going on 33.
Yeah, going on 33.
Okay.
I think it has to go one of 2 ways. I'll go with the way that I wouldn't do it first, though. I would in this way you would trade Giannis with 2 years left on his deal, and you trade him to someone like Houston. Now, when you make this trade, it has to do 2 things for you. One, it's got to give you draft capital back. But 2, it's got to be players that you can go and still win games with, and even in the Eastern Conference, potentially make the playoffs because you have 0 incentive to be bad.
You don't have your picks.
because you don't have your picks. So there's zero reason to, let's just suck it up and then next year we can draft high in the first round. They have to be good in some capacity, or they're wasting years where they could have higher picks because they traded them away. So it would have to be for a package of like Şengün and Jalen Green, or something like that. The young guys who can play with the roster and can, in the Eastern Conference that's weaker than the Western Conference, still win enough games to go and make the playoffs, and maybe you have a chance to play in the postseason. But on the flip side, the second one, which is what I would do, is I would keep Giannis in house. For one, he's under contract for 2 years. So, yeah, he could threaten to not play, but he's not going to do that to Milwaukee, a city that he loves.
I think he's that kind of guy.
And a fan base that he loves, and we haven't really seen that from European players specifically. So I would be surprised if we saw that from Giannis. And I think you have options next season. Damian Lillard's going to be under contract for $54 million and not play a single game, which sucks. But Brook Lopez will be gone after this season. You can trade Kyle Kuzma. Hopefully, he's under contract for $22 million. You can get rid of that contract somehow.
I'm looking at the wrong number, so I'm looking at Brook Lopez's spot. That's my bad.
Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton will pick up their player options, but you could go and get some players. Andrew Nembhard would be a player I'd go after. I'd give him some kind of bag. It would probably be on the cheaper end of what he's actually going to get.
Can you get a hardship exception in the NBA? Is that a thing?
I don't know what that is.
I'll have to look it up. It's like because Dame's out for the season, you can get like some cap relief from that.
Unfortunately, no, not in the NBA. The NBA, their salaries are not game salaries. So it's like in the NFL, you get paid a signing bonus, which is money you're just fully guaranteed, and then you get paid salary for each game that you play. So you have to play to earn that, just like you have to show up to work to earn your salary. Although you can still get paid through bonuses. So Damian Lillard would be pretty much fully guaranteed. That's pretty much fully guaranteed money. In fact, it is. It's fully guaranteed money. So $54 million is just gone next season, regardless of what happens.
Yeah.
So I would go after some pieces in this offseason. You're in the Eastern Conference, like I said. You're going to be in a weaker conference compared to the West, and I think you're in a spot where you're good enough with Giannis and some pieces around him to still make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Realistically, I think the Bucks still would think to them in their eyes that they can easily still be the second best team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
They think that they could compete with the Pacers, and they just got unlucky because of injuries the past 2 years. Cleveland, they think they're better than, and in fact, they had a winning record against Cleveland this season. And then Boston, they've beaten in a postseason series before. And so I
win like 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. In fact, I think it was the year they won the championship.
But also,
So, like,
that was post bubble
Yeah.
I know it's a long time ago, but Giannis hasn't been
4
healthy
years
in a
ago.
playoff series since.
until this year.
Correct. And then his co-star goes down.
Yeah.
So
I think you have to keep Giannis because you don't get the opportunity to have a top 3 player in the NBA like this all the time. You have to luck into it a lot of the time. These players just kind of pop out of nowhere. Luka wasn't the first overall pick. Spurs win the lottery and are able to get Wemby.
Jokic wasn't the first overall pick.
Jokic was drafted during a Taco Bell commercial. Giannis was late in the first round, and he was drafted to be a shooter, actually, and was a good three-point shooter. And then he hit a growth spurt, and he really grew and developed into the Greek freak, as he's known. So I don't see a reason for trading a top 3 player in the NBA because we've seen now historically that is something that's required to go on a deep postseason run and win a championship.
Yeah.
Now I think that's not going to be the case this season with Oklahoma City. But I think
You don't think Shea is a top 3 player in the NBA?
no. Giannis is a top 3. Luka is. Jokic is. Last season, Boston were able to win it. I think that was kind of a changing of the narrative potentially, and I think
Okay.
Oklahoma City is down that same path. But some would argue Tatum was playing as a top 8 player in the league that season.
Top 8 or top 3?
Top 8.
Okay. So is
Boston would argue top 5, and Boston fans would also argue top 3.
Is the narrative you have to have a top 8 player or a top 3?
I would say a top 8.
Okay.
You
So
have to have.
Shea's not a top 8?
He is a top 8.
He's a top 8.
Okay.
I would say you have to have a top 8, and ideally you have a top 3.
But
if that makes
you
sense.
can have a top 3 and not have a great team and win the championship, which is what we saw with Milwaukee and what we saw with Denver. The top 8 is then when you got to have a really good team around them, which is what we saw with Boston. But like going back to the bubble, LeBron was a top 3 player in the league that season. 2019, Kawhi Leonard was a top 3 player in the league that season.
Yeah.
And then the Warriors seasons, Kevin Durant was a top 3 player, and Curry was up there in the top 8. So it's kind of the narrative right now in the NBA. You have that in Giannis. There's just no reason to get rid of him in my eyes, unless the package, which is what I said multiple times in the episode that went into the void, unless the package was perfect, which, like I said earlier, the package has to be young stars who can compete now in the Eastern Conference and picks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's going to be so hard to find a package that's perfect to really
yeah.
draw away Giannis. I didn't realize he had a second year, so I completely I don't really see a world in where Milwaukee trades him this offseason.
Yeah.
Because you can be like,
Unless he requested it, because
Yes.
I think they would honor it.
I agree. But I think they'll tell him, like, let us try and build a team. We'll get Dame back from injury for your last season, at least part of it.
35-year-old Dame, 34-year-old Dame.
They won't mention that. They're trying to keep Giannis around.
Yeah.
You just need Dame.
And then if it fails, then next offseason you can start having those conversations.
Yeah.
But the fact he has 2 years left changes it up a lot for me.
I wonder if Giannis does request a trade because he goes, "Hey guys, I'm 30. I'm a big guy. Like, I don't want to risk, a career that I probably don't have I definitely don't have more than 3-4 years left playing like this, and after that I don't know how much longer I have in my career total." If he doesn't say, "I don't really want to be around for a rebuild, I want to go get another championship."
He may. I mean, once again, they'll tell him that we aren't rebuilding, we're reloading. But I get what you're saying. And I don't think he's the type of player to do that, but
Yeah.
he may have reached the point where he will. Never say never.
Yeah, and there's going to be free agents out there. Fred VanVleet has a team option for $45 million, which Houston could very likely decline, even with how well he played. So that's a budding point guard for.
Well, you want
for
D'Angelo
Giannis.
Russell for sure.
I don't know about D'Angelo Russell, but I would. Andrew Nembhard would be just a great get. I need to make sure that he would be available here. But there's players out there that you could go after in free agency. You could also acquire them through trades by trading Kyle Kuzma again, by trading Bobby Portis.
Who's gonna trade for Kyle Kuzma?
I don't know.
You technically do have
Dallas.
I don't know
Trade him
why
to
they-
Dallas.
you technically
To
do
Dallas.
have a first you can trade.
Yes, this is true as well.
I doubt they really want to part with it because it's kind of like their one first they have left, but they technically do have one.
in 2031.
Yeah. But they technically do have it. But yeah, they definitely have questioned this offseason, and they do have moves they can make, but they definitely don't have the most flexible roster, money-wise or asset-wise, so they will have to get creative.
Yeah.
But the second year completely changes things.
does.
I don't think they're at all looking to move on from Giannis this offseason. That would be a Giannis-driven decision if he's like,
Nembhard's already signed. An
I want out.
extension.
That's a great value, man.
Wow, they got
Well,
him
Ty
only
Jerome.
18 million.
Ty Jerome's
Jerome would be available.
is kind of the guy you want to look at then probably. But we can go move on. We talked about the
You wanna-
Rockets a lot.
No, did you say? I was about to say. You want to talk about the Rockets?
Yeah.
JP?
Yeah.
We've talked about the Rockets already a lot.
I don't really know what to say about the Rockets. I know about Giannis. I don't know about the Rockets.
And this conversation, and also previously just talking about, they need a lead scorer. They need someone that can go get buckets in these playoff games. We've seen flashes from Amen Thompson, especially in this last game, that he could potentially be a guy to reach that, but he has a long ways to go.
And he's never going to be the number one scorer.
No, I don't think so either. They claim the Rockets front office used Reed Shepherd as the best offensive player on this team, which is crazy to me considering he didn't get any run in this postseason. And it's not like they were playing defensive masterminds over him. So I think they will look to go get someone this offseason, like a Kevin Durant, they'll kick the tires about Giannis, someone like that. I don't think they're in like panic mode about it yet necessarily.
Is this their first loss in the play?
This is their first postseason.
Yes, this is their first
experience.
postseason.
Yeah, so
go.
it's panic mode. I feel like requires like a Toronto with LeBron, where it like turned into LeBronto because like it happened continuously. One like being the 2 seed and then losing to one of the greatest of all time, Steph Curry. Like that does not incite panic mode. That's
Exactly.
like, okay, we were young. We have to learn. We have to continue to develop and build. That's
Yeah.
definitely not panic mode.
No, I mean I completely agree.
Yeah, you said it wasn't
yes.
panic mode, so
Um,
I was just emphasizing.
Yeah. I mean, they'll definitely still look because there are some big stars on the trade block that are enticing, and they are in a good position to offer guys and picks to go get a guy. I'm not saying they're going to sit on their hands. They're definitely going to look around. To me, the biggest piece of their offseason is what do you do with Jalen Green,
Yep.
a guy that's owed a lot of money, and at this point, what you're going to get with him. He's one of the older pieces of the rebuild. What is this, year 4?
Yeah, he's year 4, but he's only 23. But
Yeah.
but the oldest of this young core.
I think you just at this point know he's a streaky scorer, and the worst part about him as a streaky scorer is he doesn't provide anything else. So when he's not scoring, he's a black hole. So I don't know if they'll try and trade him for something this offseason. He's owed a lot of money, I believe, because they
He's
gave
owed
him
$33 million. Him and Şengün are both under long extensions.
Yeah.
It just
They don't have to move him.
I wouldn't put the panic button on him because this was a guy, he played 82 games. He was the leading scorer for this Rockets team.
Sure.
He scored 21 a game. And he just got in the postseason and sucked. He was awesome in one game. He scored 38. I think that's just something he's going to have to get over. He clearly in this series had a ton of confidence issues. He wasn't searching for his shot a lot of the time. He wasn't trying to produce offensively. When we saw rest of the Rockets players were doing that. Fred VanVleet was looking for a shot. Şengün was in attack mode all series. Even Jabari Smith was shooting threes in spots where he shouldn't have. Aben Thompson, especially down the stretch, was really, really hunting and trying to score. But Jalen Green just never put his foot on the gas pedal. So he was your leading scorer. He played 82 games. I just don't see a reason to trade him unless you were going after a guy like Giannis or Kevin Durant or something like that. You felt like you were in a spot where you needed to try and go win a championship now as opposed to continuing with this young core.
I guess you're right.
Is Katie a guy you have to trade for? Or is he a free agent?
He's a guy you have to.
Katie's going to
trade
have to be a
for.
guy you have to trade
Okay.
for.
I've heard him being talked about a guy that moves a lot, like this offseason. He's kind of the big piece you could get. I couldn't remember if it was.
He's the guy I think is likely to request a trade.
Yeah.
Phoenix feels pretty dead in the water.
Mm-hmm.
I just think with Jalen Green, my thing is going back to the Reed Shepherd piece, right? If you really view Reed Shepherd as like the guy, Jalen Green becomes expendable, and I get that.
Yeah.
You're right. That doesn't mean the panic button's hit on him, but this was his first playoffs. But we've seen the confidence issues throughout his whole career,
Sure.
where he's gone through long stretches where he just looks pretty poor. He's not terrible efficiency-wise, but he is a bit more of a volume scorer, except for when he goes through those hot stretches where he has a month where it feels like he can't miss a three. But if you really feel like Reed Shepherd is that guy, I feel like you're going to have to find a way to clear minutes for him. So maybe that is you don't pick up the Fred VanVleet player option or the club option.
I don't see I don't see the avenue where they go down and pick up his option.
You're just going to give you're just going to.
I don't think he's worth $45 million. He was worth $42 million to them this season, especially in the postseason. But I just don't think at a 32 that he would be worth that, especially, like you said, if you're going to have to give Reed Shepherd some minutes.
Yeah, it comes down to me trusting their word that they think Reed Shepherd is the answer long-term at point, which I love Reed Shepherd, so I'm all for that. But you're just going to give Reed Shepherd those minutes and then look to fill the veteran presence elsewhere in free agency at a much cheaper cost because you can get veteran presences from way less than $44 million.
Yeah, they either need to decide we're going to go with the young core and try to build with them, and then try to find different versions of Steven Adams and Fred VanVleet. But I think they're in a really unique position, in a very favorable position. You're in a spot where you have a ton of young talent. You still have a ton of draft picks, and you have these guys that you can trade as well that are on these long contracts as well.
Sure.
So it helps to have a guy like Şengün or Jalen Green on a $33 million contract, because that makes trading for Kevin Durant or Giannis so much easier, because you have to match salaries in the NBA for
Makes
a
it
trade
very
to be
easy.
legal. So I think an avenue to trade Jalen Green is very possible. And I would if I'm building a team in 2K, I would trade him as well. I wouldn't pick up Fred
What
VanVleet's
is he, like
option.
a 89 overall?
He's an 87 overall.
Crazy. I wonder what the trade market is for Jalen Green, how other teams view him. Is it someone a team, for example, like Brooklyn, would be willing to take a flyer on, and Houston could flip him into, I don't know, like a Cam Johnson,
Sure.
plus something else. A lot more, not as high of a ceiling as Jalen Green, but a lot more stable of a presence and a great shooter. I'm just curious what route they would go in looking to trade for him, and I'm not positive they would love the trade options out there. He almost feels like more of a great person put in a trade package, as opposed to here's Jalen Green, who wants him?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're just in a
They're not
tough
in any
spot
rush.
in this postseason, because it was these players. Yeah, it's great to have all this young talent, but the young talent has to step up in the postseason.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And also, this young talent hasn't really developed in spots as much as you would like. Cam Whitmore was not really anything in his second season. Not playing Reed Shepherd, in my opinion, hurts his development. You would have loved to seen him in this postseason run, and then he's got already a year of postseason under his belt, especially with the way Jalen Green was playing. Kind of a questionable decision there from a coaching perspective.
I think it was
This
almost,
guy didn't get NBA minutes and then playoff minutes as well.
yeah. I mean, I feel like the non-playoff minutes is because he didn't get NBA minutes in the regular season.
And that's just inexcusable, in my opinion.
I agree.
But yeah, and then the pieces haven't developed. Jabari Smith has been the same player he was his rookie season. He was supposed to be a star. He was drafted
Second
right after
overall,
Chet Holmgren.
yeah. Or third?
Third overall,
Yeah, you're
Chet
right.
Holmgren. And Jalen Green developed really well and has been a consistent scorer, but then in the postseason he was terrible. Şengün has really been the bright spot. And then Amen Thompson really came on finally at the end of the season in his second season. So it's just they didn't get, I guess, as lucky as Oklahoma City has with their young talent, where their young talent has really developed really quickly. J-Dub and Chet and SGA and Cason Wallace. So it's just, you look at your counterpart and you think, well, why is it working for them? And I think they're going to make a brash decision in some way.
You don't think they're going to wait a year?
No, I think they've got a great head coach in Ime who can take very talented guys. Like, he already did it in Boston with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and all of them, and Marcus Smart. And I think they have a coach where they can be in a win-now spot. And so I think they're going to make some kind of move somehow, because in the Western Conference, it's an arms race. You got to keep up. You got to continue to add pieces. You can't be stagnant. We saw that we've seen that in many spots where with Phoenix, they have kept that core and really kept it stagnant. Now they don't even make the postseason.
Memphis is another example.
The Kings bring back their core after the good series against the Warriors and losing in 7, and now they have missed the postseason. Memphis is a great example. I expect the Thunder to make a move at some point this offseason, some kind of brash move, because it's the Western Conference. There's so much stars. You have to make big moves, and I think Houston is going to be in that spot where they have to, or they're going to be in the same spot. Yeah, you're going to win a ton of games, but when you come to the playoffs, you're just not going to be viewed the same.
Yeah, and trade value will start to go down on some of those guys if you wait and see what you have. Talk about, you don't have to hit the panic button necessarily on Jalen Green. He's a 21 point per game scorer. but he has yet another season like where he did this year, and I think he's going to kind of get the label of he's not a winning player. He can be a good player on a bad basketball team. He can put up, empty stats on a bad basketball team, and who's going to want to trade for that? Jabari Smith is kind of crazy. He's 21, and to say, like, if he has another season where he did, it's just, his trade value is already taken a big hit, but it would go down even further. I don't think I'd hate it either way doing what they did. A lot of it would just come down to package, honestly, of what they give up, and then that would be kind of how I would decide. But they are in a very fortunate spot in terms of they have options, and they have a lot of talent, young talent, cheap talent, and valuable talent. So they can go make moves, and they have a lot of draft picks. They have one of the best futures currently in the NBA looking ahead. Now, do they mess it up? Time will tell. But, you got to like where they're at currently.
The only other team I would talk about is the Pistons.
Sure.
They're kind of in a similar spot where they kind of feel like they have to make a move. Cade Cunningham needs some help in some capacity. Jaden Ivey broke his leg and wasn't able to play in this postseason, and that kind of hurt them.
What was Jaden Ivey averaging?
He was averaging 17 points a game for them. So they get into the postseason, they really could have used him, especially with having to rely on Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway to be secondary scorers. Thompson had a good season, not as good as Amon. But for them, they've got some decisions to make. Now, look, they had a very successful season. They boost their wins by 30. They go from 14 to 44. They make the postseason, which for Detroit is a static thumbs up from the entire city. Like, it doesn't matter what sport you're playing. For them to make the postseason, they're going to love it, regardless of how the team is playing. It's unlike Pittsburgh, for instance, where, we made the postseason, but, like, when are we actually going to become good?
Yeah.
Detroit, they're going to be ecstatic about making the postseason regardless of what happens.
Because they're not used to it.
Yeah, they're not used to it whatsoever in their city in any sport. So they are chomping at the bit to make the postseason. Cade Cunningham was outstanding this season. He really took a big step, got some votes for most improved player. But, they're going to either have to decide, does Jaden Ivey coming off a broken leg become someone who can be the second option for them the entire season, or are they going to have to make a move as well? They've got some tradable contracts, Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway, to name a few.
They got picks.
They have picks as well. They, in the episode that went in the void, were a spot where I could see Giannis coming here. Now, I don't expect that because Milwaukee wouldn't trade Giannis within division. So that just would be surprising. But they have some tradable contracts. Tobias Harris is owed $26 million next year. So it'll be interesting to see. Malik Beasley is going to be a free agent. Dennis Schroeder, a free agent. Tim Hardaway, a free agent. But Isaiah Stewart's a tradable contract. You have Ron Holland, who's owed $8 million next year, a tradable contract. We'll see where they go. I'm curious. I think they have to make some kind of move. They need one more piece. They seem like they've got enough players.
Yeah.
They weren't in that spot where like the Nuggets were, where they don't have a fifth player. They need a reliable third player, reliable fourth player that's going to be consistent for them in the postseason.
I think comparing them to the Rockets, I think the difference is the Rockets have more talent, theoretical talent. You obviously don't know how it's going to turn out. But where the Rockets, I think, could convince themselves to sit on their hands and let players develop and think they have the guys in-house, I don't think the Pistons really feel that way or can even really convince themselves of that. I like Jaden Ivey as a player, but I don't really see a world where he's the second best player on a finals team.
Sure.
And so I do think, one, because of that reason, the Pistons are going to go make a move. And also the East is weak right now. So think about we talked about the Rockets where, well, they have to go make a move because you'll get left behind with how tough the West is. With the Pistons, like, well, I feel like they have to go make a move and capitalize on how kind of, wide open the East is outside of maybe the Celtics. And the Celtics are having they have some guys coming up that are going to need new contracts, and they're about to have guys get expensive. They're going to have to make some moves. They still have their really good core. I'm not debating that. But I think the time is now for the Pistons to make a move. And with how good Cade was this season, and maybe he even gets just a little bit better, of a 3-point shot or something like that, or just has a slightly better season. Not that they even need him to have that, but I think they'll make some sort of move.
Is this a spot for KD possibly, or?
I don't necessarily love the fit as much as I do in Houston, but it's possible.
It's definitely possible. They've got money to spend too. They're $30 million under
Yeah.
the cap for next year, and that's with them picking up every single player option that they have available, which they more than likely will do with the players available. So yeah, they'll have $30 million to spend, so they could easily take in KD's $55 million in some capacity, and they would be trading contracts away as well.
For sure.
So on top of adding KD, they could also add in free agency.
The free agency class isn't fantastic at the top end.
Mhm.
You have a lot of solid guys, or like a Ty Jerome, which is a valuable piece, but there's no like star in the free agency class, unless I'm forgetting somebody, which I don't.
Realistically, it's like
Kyrie would have been that guy, except he tore his ACL, and
Correct.
so he just doesn't have that value anymore because he's not going to play
Fred
next
Van
year.
Vliet is kind of near the high end of that. You have older guys, and
You have some player options.
Miles Turner is going to be an unrestricted free agent. D'Lo, Luke Kennard's out there. Steven Adams, with the way he played this season,
Sure.
is going to get some money in some capacity. If the Spurs don't bring back Chris Paul, he's out there. I think this is a great spot for Fred Van Vliet to land. I think they're also going to try to bring back Malik Beasley as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, adding Fred Van Vliet, a veteran presence, which will help them in the postseason, and as well give them a second option, is a spot that I could say you would trust Fred Van Vliet more than you would trust Tim Hardaway Jr. That's for sure, and he could play that same role for them.
Yeah.
But
wonder
they're a spot for KD. I just don't see a scenario where KD would play in Detroit.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
He's going to pick where he wants to go. He's going to kind
with
of
the
pick his
decisions
last
he's
ride.
already made, picking Golden State and picking Brooklyn.
Does he
and
go back to
picking
Golden
Phoenix.
State?
It's possible we could trade Kuminga. We'd have to move some contracts around for sure. There's a lot of people speculating that we let Draymond go. I would be very surprised if that happens.
Let him go?
As in trade him away.
Really?
Yeah.
That would be very surprising.
That would surprise me a ton. But I think with the addition of Jimmy Butler, I just don't think that's an option anymore. I don't think they can get $54 million in unless they would be over the second apron for sure.
And the rest of their roster would be, just kind of straight up trash.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Quentin Post.
Quentin Post, fifth best player.
He's a shooter.
Sure. I don't know if you want him as your fifth best player. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know any other teams we need to talk about, or like I really want to talk about.
No, it's midnight. We are at almost 2 hours. We're at 1:50. So if we want to talk to somebody else and get the 2 hours.
No, I'm good personally. I think we can
I'm
wrap
good.
this show up.
Yeah, Jack called the hour 50. I don't know if y'all noticed there were no cuts or splices. I figured out how to fix it so
Good
that
stuff,
we can now
Sanders.
record longer than an hour and a half.
Huge.
So yeah, make one mistake on Wednesday and then figure out how to fix other stuff on Sunday.
Redemption.
I've
That's
been
what I
trying
call
not
that.
to yawn to this mic all night.
Now you good?
I think it's getting close to bedtime.
Yeah, we can wrap this up. If y'all are still watching, thanks for tuning in. It was a ton of fun.
The show we released Sunday afternoon, so yesterday for the viewers, already has 10 views on YouTube. So
Let's go.
and none of them are actually. I think one of them was me because I opened to like it.
Well, yeah, I'll have
but
to do the
Naturally.
same.
I'm not. There were a couple of videos early on where we're still trying to figure out how this all works and algorithm, view count and stuff. I have 3 email addresses, one personal, one for the Angleball account, and then one for the podcast account. And I opened YouTube on all 3 on my laptop and started playing the video on loop on 2 times speed. And so the view count was like 40.
We'll take that and we'll
Yeah,
good
but
stats.
this 10 was without me doing that. So these are 10 real people.
Look at us go.
Open the video.
Shout out you guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll we'll let y'all go so we can go.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in.
Hopefully it's not midnight for you. Go to sleep.
Facts. I'm looking forward to round 2 of the playoffs. It should be a ton of fun. And we'll be back on Wednesday for us, Thursday for y'all to break.
Well, it'll be Wednesday, actually.
Yeah, we can, because our boss told us she doesn't have to listen to the podcast before we post it now. And that's, we usually record in the afternoon, send it to her. She listens to it that night, and we post the next morning at 8 a.m. Now that we don't have to do that, we can just post it.
It'll be out Wednesday afternoon.
Look at that. Wednesday for us.
I'm not
Wednesday
post
for
this
y'all.
Because there's no point. I'm
Yeah.
gonna schedule this one for 8 a.m.
And we'll have our weekly segments back that we missed last weekend because they're in the void. And then we'll have early breakdowns of the first couple games of the round 2 series. So we look forward to seeing y'all then. Peace.
See ya.